Chapter 1910, Cut Off Your Head. How bad can the network of a backward phasio country really be? Probably, they could even use a decade-old server from an ordinary research lab in the Huashu Kingdom as the main server for their national network hub. In the eyes of Lou Caron, the world's #1 mechanical engineer, it is a complete spider's web, even larger than the gaps in a sieve. So when the operation begins, the entire country's network will be within Lou Caron's control. For example, she had already intercepted the signal from Prison City to the 3 major missile launch bases. At this time, no message could be transmitted to the 3 major missile bases. However, just to be on the safe side, the 2 of them, her and Deng Shintong, still needed to carry out the next plan. The hypersonic snow all flew to the missile launch base on the outskirts of Prison City. Deng Shintong fell from a great height, the night wind whistling past his body, and his body slowly disintegrated into a mass of particles in the darkness. Jiangnan region, Epsilon-class mutant, White Chariot level, supernatural ability index 17,000 points. Codename, Erlang Shen, the true lord of the sacred realm, Yang Jian. As one of the lucky few who had enjoyed the baptism of the spiritual ocean's aftermath on the wasteland of Chernobyl, his strength had improved tremendously in just 1 month. Although it was not comparable to Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin, this gain was definitely enough to make the vast majority of mutants around the world jealous. The light particles scattered like tiny fireflies in the air, falling towards the missile launch base. In the dark night, the light was faint. In the middle of the base, some patrolling soldiers noticed this, but after rubbing their eyes, they saw nothing. Is it an illusion? Why do I feel like there's suddenly light in the sky? One soldier said curiously. Another soldier frowned. We'd better report this to the higher-ups. He was extremely vigilant and immediately wanted to use the communication equipment to report this strange light source. But the next moment, a cut that glowed fluorescent appeared around his neck. 2 heads fell silently from their necks, and their bodies were lifted by the gentle light, falling slowly to the ground without making a sound. Lou Caron stopped on the nearby hilltop, with all the missile launch bays of the snow all open and aimed at the underground base in front of them. Deng Shintong, I've blocked all signals in the area. Sneak in, plug the device I gave you into their console, and I'll be able to hack into the internal network and take control of the entire base. She couldn't enter the base directly in the mech, unless she stormed it, but that would alert the enemy too easily. Deng Shintong was the first choice for the mission. Leave it to me. Deng Shintong's light point sneaked in along the gap in the thick, heavy metal doors of the base. No matter how small the gap, it cannot block the penetration of light. But as soon as he entered the base, the alarm sounded. Alarm, alarm. A high-energy reaction has been detected inside the base. There is a mutant invasion. Deng Shintong suddenly heard a flurry of rapid footsteps, and the base's defenders began to rush over. Deng Shintong helplessly condensed his form in place. No choice. I'm always so dazzling, I can't hide it. After being turned into energy, he was indeed very easy to detect, and this was not even a high-level technical method. However, it no longer mattered. As long as he could ensure that he could enter the base, then it would all be over. Because according to intelligence, the only 6 mutants of level Epsilon in the entire KG Kingdom were not at the launch base of the Reaper of Love. They thought that such a base was hidden enough, and coupled with the usual shortage of manpower, it was naturally impossible to station top-level experts there all year round. Therefore, even if the ones who appeared in front of Deng Shintong were elite soldiers, it was completely useless. A large number of soldiers appeared in front of Deng Shintong and opened fire without hesitation. Several military-looking mutants raised their hands at him, the mutants of the beast type began to transform, and the mutants of the release department also raised their hands and shot energy cannons. But Deng Shintong only did one thing. He opened his arms, and suddenly dozens of long swords condensed from illusory light appeared around him. Let me show you what I've just learned. All-pervading. Wherever the light shines, it can reach the heavens above and the underworld below. It can be used for attack or defense, and is capable of infinite transformations. After Chernobyl, he gained a new understanding of his own abilities. He is the master of light, and naturally should use light as a weapon. Dozens of long bright swords shot from his sides and rushed forward, cutting through everything in their path as he danced his fingers. The supernatural powers released by the mutants passed through his body and could not harm him even the slightest. However, when those bright swords cut through their bodies, it was like a hot sword cutting through butter. The thinnest is light, and this attribute allows the weapons made from it to be incredibly sharp. SSS. 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 The long sword slices through, leaving no bloodstains. The cut is perfectly even, but instead there are glowing light spots where the wound was. Wherever the sword passes, it quickly kills every enemy that gets in its way. Deng Shintong has killed all the enemies in front of him in just a split second. The alarm sounds are very loud in his ears, and the heavy iron doors are rapidly closing one after the other. Deng Shintong transformed into a ray of light and disappeared from the spot with a swish, before rushing forward. Nothing could stop his figure as he passed by. When he arrived at the control room, he saw several officers nervously watching a soldier in front of the console as he inserted a key into the controller and shouted for communication with Prison City. Tiger Base 1 has been breached, requesting permission to fire the missile. Even though they were at a missile launch base, in order to launch the Reaper of Love, they had to apply for permission from Prison City, from Ken Sain. Marshal Sain didn't trust anyone, and would never hand over control of such a dangerous weapon to his subordinates. So when faced with a strong enemy invasion, they watched helplessly as the weapon in their hands became scrap metal. Fortunately, I arrived just in time, Deng Shintong said coldly. Without the slightest hesitation, the bright longsword slashed the heads off of all the officers present. In less than a minute, the entire missile launch base was under his control. He knew very well that Zhang Yi's reminder was correct. Because if the officer at the missile base had the authority to independently launch the Reaper of Love, the moment the base was attacked and it was confirmed that there was no way to fight back, he might just launch the Reaper of Love directly. Without Zhang Yi, if he and Lu Karen were to directly withstand the blow of the Reaper of Love, even if they could barely survive, they would be disabled due to the terrifying amount of radiation energy they would have received. Deng Shintong walked over the bodies and went to the control panel, inserting the device Lu Karen had given him into the console as instructed. In less than 3 seconds, the screens on the entire console turned into smiling faces. Lu Karen's voice came over the broadcast, "Control has been completed, and this base has been taken over by me. We can go to the next base." Deng Shintong did not hesitate for a moment and quickly turned around. They had to hurry, because it would still take some time to fly to the other 2 missile launch bases. After that, they still had another extremely important task to complete. Marshal Sain's official residence. The island was as luxurious as usual after nightfall. It is as if all the electricity, food, good wine, and beautiful women in the entire KG Kingdom have been gathered here from Marshal Sain and the senior members of the KG Kingdom to enjoy. Everything is as usual, nothing out of the ordinary. Jose stood at the entrance of the official residence, carefully instructing his subordinates to check every person entering. Since the last incident of the human bomb, the checks here have become even more stringent. They will specially arrange for ability users to check every person from head to toe. But for some reason, Choi Jae always felt a vague unease in his heart. He wasn't in a very good mood today. He always felt that something big was about to happen. However, he didn't suspect the chef Wu Yanzu, but was worried about himself. Accompanying the king is like accompanying a tiger. As the captain of the personal guard of Commander Ken Sain and the Minister of Supervision, he is second to none and above everyone else in the entire KG Kingdom. However, no matter how close their relationship was, even if they had fought together on the battlefield in the past. But now, Ken Sain is the king, and the king will suspect that his ministers have too much power. Plus, a few days ago, for no reason at all, he suspected a cook, and even went so far as to recall Park Chang-fan from the front line, which was a big mistake. This made Choi Jae feel that there was something wrong with him. But tonight, everything seemed perfectly normal. Everyone entering the island had been thoroughly checked. From the soldiers to the guests, the servants, and the kitchen staff, he was sure that there was nothing wrong. This is just an ordinary banquet, no different from any other in the past, Choi Jae comforted himself. Time slowly passed, until Ken Sain woke up and walked unrecognizably to the banquet hall. In the kitchen, someone came over to Zhang Yi and said, "Chef Wu, you can serve the food now." Zhang Yi carefully wiped his hands, threw the towel aside, nodded to the soldier and said, "Yes, we will serve the food right away." He led several kitchen staff and pushed the dishes to the banquet hall on a small cart. Ken Sain looked as lazy as ever today, lying back in his general's chair and looking down at everyone. When he saw Zhang Yi, he gave a small smile. "Chef Wu, I suddenly feel like having your food tonight. Have you prepared anything special for me?" Zhang Yi hurried over with a smile, bowing and saying, "Of course, it is my greatest honor to serve the commander. You will love these dishes, as they are specially prepared for you." With that, he wheeled the cart over to Ken Sain's side. Choi Jae kept his eyes on Zhang Yi, as was his professional habit. The cart and the food had been tested and were fine, and the food had even been tasted by the chef himself. Ken Sain was indeed very happy to see the dishes. He ignored the others and reached over to grab a piece of char siu and started eating it. "Commander, the essence of char siu is to eat it with rice. Char siu rice has more flavor." Zhang Yi specially served a bowl of rice in a golden rice bowl. "These are all people who revere you, offering you each grain with respect." Naturally, Yang Xia made the barbecue pork, and the taste needs no further explanation. As a mutant in the food department, her cooking can make people fall deeply in love with it and unable to tear themselves away. Ken Sain's eyes lit up as soon as he took a bite of the barbecue pork. He narrowed his eyes and reminisced about the time when he first went to eastern Guangdong to make his fortune. At that time, he was just a penniless illegal immigrant with no legal status to remain in eastern Guangdong. He was desperate to make a fortune, so he worked odd jobs and hid in fear of being caught by the police and deported. At that time, the thing he wanted to eat most was the barbecued pork rice from the restaurant on the north side of Zili Lane. Every time he passed by, he could smell the sweet aroma of the barbecued pork from afar. Later, when he finally earned his first salary, the first thing he did was go to that barbecue restaurant and buy 2 large portions of barbecued pork. He just ate it with plain white rice, and the fragrant, oily char siu meat made him feel like crying. Memories are the most delicious seasoning. Ken Sain took just one bite, and then he couldn't help but reach for a spoon and shovel it into his mouth in big mouthfuls. He was always so rude when eating, because there was no need for him to pretend to be a gentleman in front of others, and no one would dare to ask him to eat gracefully. On the contrary, because he did this, everyone else scrambled to imitate the way a pig eats. Ken Sain ate with gusto, and he washed down the barbecued pork with the best foreign wine. Zhang Yi served him with a smile, bringing him delicious dishes one after the other. The banquet was a drunken revelry, and while Ken Sain was happy to eat, the others were also greatly relieved. Because when the commander is in a bad mood, he can kill people. And he kills in the most depraved way imaginable. Zhang Yi served attentively all evening, watching as Ken Sain's belly grew bigger and bigger, his mouth overflowing with food, his eyes full of contentment. "This meal will be a farewell meal," Zhang Yi thought to herself. After eating 2 full portions of barbecued pork rice and sampling the other dishes, General Sain gulped down a large drink and said to Zhang Yi with satisfaction, "Chef Wu, your cooking today is really satisfying. Just tell me what reward you want, and I'll grant it." In the banquet hall, the way the others looked at Zhang Yi was full of envy. Zhang Yi bowed excitedly and said to Ken Sain, "Thank you, Commander. In that case, I won't be polite either." He looked up at the man in front of him and said, "I want your head." As soon as the words fell, light flashed crazily in Zhang Yi's left eye. The ancient pendulum appeared, symbolizing the minute hand of the clock moving 1 click. Minute hand of the hour, blink in the sky. Everything was according to plan, there was nothing to hesitate about. Since the decision had been made to kill the other party, the attack would be launched with all one's strength. One of Zhang Yi's most powerful moves was now activated directly. In an instant, demon god armor appeared on his body. This powerful armor could help him to reduce the damage caused by reaching the speed of light. The surging, powerful force directly blasted onto Ken Sain's body. The next moment, all the people in the banquet hall saw was Ken Sain's body flying through the air and exploding. Everyone was frozen in place by what had suddenly happened. Because for them, what had happened in that instant did not exist. They only saw the upper body of Ken Sain, who was originally fine, explode into flying flesh and blood, and a figure clad in black armor, like a demon god, appeared strangely in front of him. The distance between Choi Jae and the two men was less than 3 meters at this distance. If anyone had attacked Ken Sain, he would have been able to intervene in time. But Zhang Yi's abilities were a complete blow to him. The pupil behind his glasses suddenly shrank to the size of a soybean, unable to believe what he was seeing. That armored man, who looked like a demon god, just blasted the god of the KG kingdom to pieces. An endless rage surged up within Choi Jae like a raging fire. But as a supremely intelligent character, a trace of surprise arose in his mind without his realizing it. If Ken Sain went down, then his chance would come, wouldn't it? Ah! A scream broke the silence, and a blue flower in the crowd could not stand the bloodshed and screamed. The others also came back to their senses, and screams, curses, and chaos filled the banquet hall. Choi Jae was also brought back to his senses by this shout. Without the slightest hesitation, a terrifying thunder directly exploded from his body. He turned into lightning and smashed a punch at Zhang Yi. But before his fist reached Zhang Yi, a fierce, murderous gust of wind struck his face. A tall woman in battle armor brandished a long sword and slashed at him. The person prepared for the captain of the royal guards and the minister of supervision was Liang Yu, the #1 martial artist. Zhang Yi looked at the broken flesh in front of him and said indifferently, "Don't pretend, I know you won't die so easily." This blow destroyed Ken Sain's physical body and caused him tremendous damage, no doubt. But Zhang Yi didn't believe that Ken Sain would die so easily. A dictator values his life more than anyone else, otherwise he would not have survived to this day. As soon as Zhang Yi's words fell, an extremely loud rumble came from the ground beneath their feet. Boom! A terrifying force soared up from the earth, and Zhang Yi, Choi Jae, Liang Yu, and the others instantly dodged out of the way. Those who had not managed to escape in time were directly vaporized by the terrifying energy in just an instant. The golden light was blindingly bright, bursting forth from beneath the earth as if the sun were about to rise from the horizon. The pillar of light engulfed everything in its path, and in the blink of an eye, it engulfed the entire mansion. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes, and the glare protection built into his armor prevented him from going blind. Among the shadows around him, Mu Yan had left his side, and only Yang Xinxin stood to his left, fighting alongside him. As for the others, they had gone to various corners of the island. They needed to block all enemies from getting here for Zhang Yi. They couldn't let them disturb Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin as they killed Marshal Sain. A golden radiance swept in all directions. Zhang Yi noticed that the world around him had changed, the island had disappeared, and the sky was no longer dark. This was a separate space, filled with dazzling golden light. Below him was an endless desert. And directly in front of him and Yang Xinxin, a magnificent golden pyramid stood in the middle of the vast desert. At the top of the pyramid stood a huge disk of the sun. Roar! A low growl came from the direction of the pyramid. It was a sphinx that was almost as tall as the pyramid. Humans call it that, but the head of this sphinx is not human, but a jackal. Kermit mythology's Anubis, the god of death, is the image of a sphinx. Zhang Yi felt that it should be the previous generation of humans, the Ecuadorian. As for why it became human-faced in the back, according to legend, it was because Napoleon attacked Kermit and destroyed its face with a cannon. In the end, after repairs, it could only be made into a human face. The Sphinx is actually a jackal lying next to the pyramid. The god of death in the Kermit myth howled angrily at the two intruders, Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin. Zhang Yi's gaze did not fall on it, because at this moment, he saw a golden figure sitting on top of the sun disk above the towering pyramid. A figure that shined like the sun, Ken Sain. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes, and his voice came from within the demon god armor, a bit dull. I have always wondered how a ruler of a kingdom surrounded by powerful enemies could maintain his authority while living a life of drunken debauchery all day long. Now I know that you have long since allowed yourself to become a spiritual being. The true nature of the universe is ether, it is thought. Therefore, it is not difficult for the strong to exist outside the body, and it is just the thought to reshape the body. Ken Sain sat on the solar disk, one leg dangling. He looked down on the two people in front of him from a position of superiority, and asked coldly, "Who are you?" Zhang Yi did not answer, his gaze falling on the pyramid and the solar disk. "The spear of Longinus is in here, isn't it?" Ken Sain's eyes flashed with murderous intent. The spear of Longinus was the source of his power, and he would never allow anyone to covet it. "It seems that you are the dog sent by the Holy See and the Nordic countries." He extended his right hand towards Zhang Yi. "Then let me kill you here today." As soon as he finished speaking, the huge sphinx next to the pyramid slowly stood up, shaking the mountain and the earth. It let out a roar and charged straight at Zhang Yi and Yang Xinqin. A ferocious wind rose up in the desert, and terrifying energy exploded from its body. The blinding heat made the light and shadow distort, and it turned into a huge flaming jackal, pouncing on Zhang Yi and Yang Xinqin with blinding speed.